What if I told you that behind these stone walls, built for silence, prayer, and purity, men were breaking vows, hiding lovers, and risking eternal damnation, all in the name of desire? This is not the history you were taught. Picture this. It's medieval Europe. The world outside is loud, violent, unpredictable. But here, inside the monastery, everything feels still. Cold stone corridors, candles flickering in the dark, monks moving like shadows, sworn to obedience, poverty, and chastity. They were meant to be dead to the world, dead to temptation, dead to desire. But here's the truth most history books whisper, if they mention it at all. They were still human. And behind these walls, hidden from God and man, some monks lived secret lives filled with passion, guilt, and longing. Tonight, we're stepping inside those forbidden lives. To understand the scandal, we first need to understand the promise. When a man became a monk, he gave up everything. His family, his name, his future. In return, he was promised salvation. No marriage, no children, no physical love. The monastery wasn't just a place, it was a test. A battlefield between the flesh and the soul. Every desire was a sin. Every thought a potential crime against God. And at first, many believed they could win. But then came the nights. Long hours of silence. Loneliness. Bodies packed together in shared dormitories. No privacy. No escape. And slowly, something cracked. Church records tell a different story than sermons ever did. Monks sneaking out after dark. Hidden letters smuggled through monastery gates. Confessions that were never meant to be heard. Some formed secret relationships with local women. Widows. Servants. Even nuns from nearby convents. Others turned inward, toward each other. Same halls. Same beds. Same forbidden closeness. And while the church publicly preached purity, privately, it punished these acts with terrifying severity. But here's the twist. Many abbots knew, and some looked the other way. Why? Because exposing the truth would shatter the image of holiness itself. By day, these men were holy. They prayed. They fasted. They copied sacred texts by hand. But by night, they lived double lives. One monk in 14th century France secretly fathered 3 children, all while remaining a respected member of his abbey. Another kept a lover hidden in a nearby village for over a decade. And some monasteries became so infamous that locals joked, "The walls are holy, but the men are not." Every knock at the gate brought fear. Every sermon about sin felt personal. Because discovery didn't just mean shame. It meant exile, public humiliation, or worse. Then came the moment that changed everything. In the late Middle Ages, church authorities began secret investigations. They expected to find a few isolated sinners. What they found instead was widespread, systematic secrecy. Entire communities living in contradiction. Monks confessing through tears, some begging for forgiveness, others refusing to repent. And here's the most shocking part. Many didn't regret the love. They regretted only being caught. For some, those stolen moments of affection were the only times they felt truly alive. Imagine believing your soul is damned and choosing love anyway. The church responded with reforms. Stricter rules, harsher punishments, greater surveillance. But desire doesn't disappear because it's forbidden. These hidden lives didn't end. They just went deeper underground. And over time, history buried them. Yet their stories matter, because they remind us of something uncomfortable and timeless. No institution, no matter how sacred, can erase human nature. Faith can guide, rules can restrain, but desire? Desire finds a way. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Were these monks sinners who betrayed God, or human beings trapped by impossible expectations? If this story made you see medieval history differently, tap the like button. It tells the algorithm this story deserves to be heard. And if you want more untold histories, the secret lives, forbidden truths, and human stories behind the past, subscribe, because history isn't just about what was written. It's about what was hidden. You might think the church ended these scandals, that stricter rules finally crushed temptation. But what if I told you this was only the beginning? The church didn't just punish sin, it managed it. When scandals threatened public faith, they weren't exposed. They were buried, records quietly rewritten, monks transferred to distant monasteries, accusations labeled temptations of the devil. In some cases, entire communities were sworn to silence, because a scandal revealed was worse than a sin committed. And so the secret survived, not in sermons, but in whispers. Some monasteries gained dark reputations. Villagers warned their daughters. Travelers shared rumors in taverns. Certain abbeys became known not for holiness, but indulgence. Wine flowed freely, rules relaxed, discipline eroded. And when temptation becomes routine, it no longer feels like sin. It feels like survival. Not every secret was reckless. Some were deeply human. Letters reveal monks who fell genuinely in love, who wrestled with their vows, who begged God for forgiveness, and still chose affection. One monk wrote, "I love her as I fear God, and I know not which weighs heavier." For these men, desire wasn't rebellion. It was connection, and giving it up felt like dying twice. History rarely tells their stories. The women who loved monks lived in shadows. Some were abandoned when investigations began. Others bore children who could never be acknowledged. No support, no protection, no mercy. If discovered, they carried the blame alone. And while monks could be reassigned, these women were erased. The greatest punishment wasn't exile. It was guilt. Monks tortured themselves through fasting, self-denial, and isolation. Some believed pain could burn desire away. Others spiraled into despair. Church writings describe monks plagued by visions, dreams filled with shame, fear that God had already turned his face away. For many, the cloister became a prison of the mind. Some monks couldn't endure it anymore. They fled. Abandoning vows meant losing everything: identity, safety, salvation. Yet records show men who chose exile over silence. They vanished into cities, became teachers, merchants, even soldiers, choosing an uncertain life over a holy lie. Why don't we hear these stories? Because history favors institutions over individuals. Stone buildings survive. Human suffering does not. Archives were sealed. Confessions destroyed. Narratives polished. What remained was an image of purity, not the truth of struggle. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just medieval history. It's a warning. Whenever institutions demand perfection, humans learn to hide. Whenever desire is demonized, it doesn't vanish. It waits. Those monks were not monsters. They were men who believed deeply and loved deeply, trapped between heaven and humanity. And maybe that's the real lesson. Holiness without compassion creates silence. Silence breeds secrecy, and secrecy destroys souls. So ask yourself, if you were forced to choose between faith and love, what would you sacrifice? If this story moved you, leave a comment. I read everyone. And if you want more hidden histories they never taught us, subscribe, because the past isn't silent. We just stopped listening. Not every monk escaped. Not every secret stayed hidden. Some were discovered. And what happened next was far worse than sin itself. Monasteries were built on obedience. That made betrayal easy. A whispered confession, a jealous glance, a rival seeking favor. Sometimes the informer was another monk, someone desperate to protect his own secrets by exposing someone else's. One accusation was enough. No trial, no defense, only suspicion. And suspicion, in medieval Europe, was deadly. Accused monks were summoned at night. No audience, no witnesses, only an abbot and God. Confession was demanded. If they denied it, punishment followed. If they admitted it, punishment followed anyway. Some were beaten, others starved, some forced into isolation until their minds collapsed. Truth didn't matter. Compliance did. When the church wanted fear, it made an example. Monks were paraded before communities, robes stripped away, heads shaved again in shame, crimes read aloud. The same man once praised as holy, now treated as cursed. Villagers watched in silence. Because if a monk could fall, anyone could. Some punishments were never spoken of. Hidden beneath monasteries were cells. Small, cold, lightless. Monks sent their disappeared from records. No names, no dates of death, just silence. Some historians believe these men were meant to be forgotten, as if they never existed. By the late Middle Ages, the problem grew too large. Too many accusations, too many scandals, too many secrets. Church leaders feared something worse than immorality. They feared exposure. Because if the faithful knew how common these acts were, trust would collapse. And in some places, it did. When the Protestant Reformation erupted, these scandals became weapons. Pamphlets accused monks of hypocrisy. Artists painted grotesque images of corrupted clergy. Former monks spoke publicly for the first time. Their stories shocked Europe, not because sin existed, but because it had been hidden for centuries. The cloister was no longer sacred. It was suspect. Some former monks wrote memoirs. They described fear, loneliness, desire they were taught to hate. One wrote, "I did not flee God. I fled the lie that God hated my humanity." Those words spread like wildfire. For the first time, the monks were no longer shadows. They were voices. Here is the tragedy history reveals. Desire didn't destroy these men. Denial did. The refusal to speak. The refusal to understand. The refusal to see monks as human. When people are forced to be angels, they break. The monastery promised heaven, but for many, it delivered silence. Yet even in silence, desire spoke. Quietly, desperately, humanly. And that may be the most honest truth medieval history ever left us. If you lived then, with no choice, no escape, would you obey? Or would you love?